Ladies and gentlemen, I come to you today not as a uninformed noob who, fresh from his mother's womb, thought to himself, "What is a hero?" I come to you today as a fellow geek. I come to you today as an informed observer. And I come to you today as someone who genuinely loves the character of Wonder Woman. And I grew up as a pretty big fan of Greek mythology. So for me, when I watch Wonder Woman, I come from it not only as a comic book fan, but someone who enjoys mythology. And I kind of like to see how they blend the two things together because it's not easy. I don't think it just comes like that. I think that Wonder Woman is uh, at least trying to tell a good Wonder Woman story comes with a lot of its own challenges. And I think that Patty Jenkins is a great director. And I think that they do a solid job. I think that they're working on telling us a story we could connect with on all levels. Um, at least that's how it feels. At least that's what I think the attempt is. Whether or not that was done is a whole other thing that I'm here to discuss real quick with you guys. This is going to be a super short review of Wonder Woman 84. If you guys like what I have to say, I would recommend you guys check out Geektastic Cypher, which is a podcast that I co-host that comes out usually every Wednesday. We do a live recording every Wednesday from 6:30 to about 8:30 in the evening Eastern time. This week we didn't have an episode as it's the holiday season. Wonder Woman came out on Christmas Day, so we didn't have a chance to review it. I told the guys I wanted to review it because like I said, I have a lot to say. I'm a big fan of Wonder Woman as a character. I'm a big fan of Greek mythology, so I kind of just wanted to jump in and address this as quickly as possible. And what better way than to have a little bit of the clips playing while I discuss it? So just here in the background, we're just gonna have the intro playing. Now, you guys know that Warner decided to start releasing their films simultaneously through in theaters and at the same time on HBO Max. In Canada, which I did not know. Thank you to all the people that let me know. Because originally I did state that the film was not going to be available in Canada until after its theatrical release. I was wrong. It's available for to rent on all the many platforms, Amazon, Google, all those different things. So that was a nice, pleasant surprise on the first day. I really didn't think I was going to get to see it, but hey, here we are. And I really wonder when I watched the movie and I went in thinking, okay, I really liked the first film. I really did. I genuinely thought Wonder Woman was super interesting. Um, I just didn't like the final act. I thought the final act was so poorly done in the last film. And then unfortunately, that's kind of what happens in this one again. Wonder Woman 84, which is the new film, takes place in the 80s for what seems like absolutely no reason. There is no reason to do this film in the 80s that I can think of. I don't understand it. I don't see what they were trying to do with it. I don't think I feel like it just felt like, oh, we should do the 80s because the 80s are cool, and that's just it. It didn't really come across as needed. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman doesn't appear to be dressing in 80s fashion per se. She kind of just looks like she's dressing in modern style. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up. I'm skipping over the first fight because the first fight was just kind of a ridiculous. Like, it didn't even feel like fan service. It kind of just felt like, oh, hey, Wonder Woman can do cool stuff. She's actually, you know what? I will pull it up super quick. Wonder Woman is Spider-Man. That's what this feels like. The first scene. So this is. By the way, if you guys are watching this, spoilers. I'm going to be reviewing this. I'm gonna have clips up. I'm going to be talking about the film. Spoilers. But Wonder Woman using the lasso like Spider-Man uses his webbing was something new to me. It's not something I remember seeing in the comic book. I could be wrong. I have not read every single Wonder Woman comic. In the ones that I read, she has sometimes used the lasso to kind of swing from places, but mostly the lasso is used to capture people, force the truth out of them, fighting tactics. She used the, yeah, God, sorry, just watching the clips, I'm just like, good God, what is she doing? But it kind of just felt like they wanted to kind of have the cool swinging superhero thing going, and she just really doubles down on it. Like they really went hard for it. And I think that's one of the things that kind of drove people crazy with the film, that they went so hard on the swinging. When she does it the second time in the film, when she figures out her powers, that was also another point of kind of crazy use of the lasso that I've always known as a gift. That was, first of all, this is her learning to fly. But the lasso that she kind of just always used to fight now has become a mode of transportation, at least earlier on. At this point in the film, the clip that you guys are looking at right now, here, right here, this painful clip here, where she is now learning to fly because a lover of hers that came back from the dead. Man, I'm so in shock of how much. Okay, I need to take a moment. I need to take a quick moment to rally my thoughts. So let's pause this. Wonder Woman uses the lasso in this movie like Spider-Man uses his spider webs and Thor uses the hammer. And I understand that those are appealing ways. And I understand that in the realm of superheroes and comic books, it's hard to try and make a lasso or string or anything like similar to webbing or rope seem unique. I mean, we've seen that Daredevil uses his stick and the rope that he has similar to Spider-Man. We've seen that Catwoman uses it similar. We've seen that Black Cat uses similar. So I'm not going to fault Wonder Woman for doing the same. However, she doesn't tend to do it in the comic book. And that's, I think, the shocker for most people. Because I feel like a lot of people watched the film and who were fans and saw this and were just like, what's going on? Why is Wonder Woman using this thing to mimic these other heroes and their abilities? I don't know if it was intended to come across that way, but it does. Moving on to the fact that the flight, I think that her ability to fly has always been a significant part of the character. I know originally she didn't know how to fly, but as we all know, she had the invisible jet. I think the scene that kind of bothers me about her learning to fly was definitely when she is talking with Steve, and Steve's explaining where flying, like, where does it come from? Where does the skill for flight kind of come from? And then this is the scene we get right here.
Well, now's not a bad time to start trying. How long does it last?
I don't know. It was just a coffee cup. And I lost it.
Approach. The aircraft has vanished. Do you have eyes on it?
Okay, so issue for me real quick. Um Wonder Woman's ability to turn this jet invisible, fine. We're playing around with her powers. That's fine. Again, I have not read every single Wonder Woman comic, so I can't say that this is not a new power set or a power set that she's had in the comic book where she can make things invisible. The original invisible jet, as far as I understood, was an invisible jet. It was not that she made it invisible herself. I have always been very excited to see how they handle the invisible jet in the films. I was very much hoping for stealth technology that made the jet invisible. I'm super disappointed that they decided to make it that she figures out from her godlike powers how to turn the jet invisible. And in some very bizarre fashion, also, it emits no sound now that it's invisible. That was the other thing that bothered me about that scene. A lot of people say I'm nitpicky when I watch films. I think that I'm not nitpicky. I think, if anything, I try to understand the logic in fantasy and science fiction. I'm more than happy to accept the things you're trying to depict in this world, as long as it still fits within the realm of the physics and logic that exist in that world. Wonder Woman turning the jet invisible would not have gotten rid of sound. Unless that's something we're just supposed to believe, in which case that still bothers me, but fine. Steve Trevor knowing how to fly a jet, even though he's come back from the dead and it's 60 to 70 years later, bothers me a lot. A lot of people that I spoke to said, "Oh, it's fantasy. You should just be able to accept it. This is just the story they're telling. You don't overthink it." And another person was saying, "Oh, well, he walks through the museum. So in the museum, I guess there must be something that explains the controls for the." No. That's not a thing, guys. You don't come back from the dead 60 to 70 years later. You flew what were basic planes back in those days. You flew one kind of special tech jet at the end of the film, the first film, where you sacrifice yourself. And then because of that, you now seem to be able to understand a jet created in the 1980s. In what world do you understand fighter jets from the 80s if you died 60 to 70 years ago? And I think the thing that bothered me the most about that wasn't just the fact I could accept that Steve Trevor knew how to fly the jet if it wasn't for the fact that when he's hanging out, and this is the scene right here, when he's hanging out with Wonder Woman, at one point, right here, we're going to bring that back up. At one point, he doesn't know how to get onto an escalator. And I know that seems small, but like I said before, I like to understand things in framing of the physics and universe of the world that you've established, right? That's how things work for me. So if you establish that Steve Trevor doesn't understand how to get onto an escalator, which, for those of you who don't know,
One foot after the other. Now stay on this one. Go to the middle. Now Steve.
that scene right there is probably one of the things that annoyed me the most about the film. And I know my friends and the fans will be like, "God, Brian, you're nitpicking." But I'll explain it to you this way. The escalator was invented at the end of the 19th century. So around 1890 something. Steve dies in what was World War I, 1915, 16, somewhere around there. A man who was alive when the escalator was invented and was a pilot in the military and had been around the world, as we knew about him, doesn't know an escalator. Fine. Sees one for the first time, doesn't understand how to get on it, has to have it explained, is shocked when he gets on it. Cool. But that same person can fly a jet? Can fly a fighter jet? Are you... Guys, it doesn't make any sense. These are the things that don't make sense. When you're making these movies, I'm more than happy to, suspension of disbelief. I get it, but you can't create certain scenarios and then introduce other things that just don't make sense. You guys just needed a really convenient way to get to Cairo in the film, and I get that, and I understand it. But making it so that it feels like you think I'm an idiot, and I'm watching the film and I see that, and I now have to accept, okay, you guys want me to just understand that this guy doesn't understand a simple thing like an escalator, but can figure out a fighter jet in No time at all. You want me to accept that he can now, as he's back from the dead, he can explain flight to Wonder Woman, and then she just chooses to learn to fly. She just chooses to fly. She just listens to his voice telling her it's just the air. It's just your connection. These things like this, I'm like, I would have been more. Wonder Woman is an amazing character. She's powerful, strong, and like the originals, man, the original story arc with Max Lord in the comic book, the OMAC project, if this is what they were hinting at, she kills him because she realizes sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. This version of Wonder Woman that they've created in the movies doesn't seem like the same cutthroat person. One of the big jokes, and I mean, it's a joke, but it's actually a big commentary that Wonder Woman makes. There's a reason her rogues don't come back. She says that to Batman. Like, I don't have a rogues gallery. I don't worry about 101 different people constantly coming at my neck because I handle my business. And that's one of the things I always respected about Wonder Woman. And I really wanted to see this film handle that aspect of Wonder Woman. When she's fighting Cheetah later on in the film, which, by the way, Kristen Wiig, wholeheartedly underused in this film. It is almost insulting how little they used her in this film. The fact that Max is the major villain of the story is fine. I wouldn't have put Max and Cheetah if you were going to do it this way. It almost feels insulting to the character because Barbara Minerva is one of Wonder Woman's like true blue villains. Like they have a rivalry and a relationship that is set in the burning hatred of Barbara for what Wonder Woman stands for. Think Lex Luthor and Superman. And for them to diminish her to the secondary character to Max was unfortunate. It really bothered me. I watched this film and I wanted Kristen Wiig to be so much more important. I wanted her to be so much more powerful. Don't get me wrong. She's strong as hell, which is super cool. She kicks ass. She handles her business. But like seeing that one fight towards the end was unfortunately just not enough. Like, I get it. She's agile and it was cool. And that was a cool scene to see. But I wanted to see more. I wanted to see her trying to take over. I wanted to see her trying to take advantage. At the beginning, when she first gets her powers, it almost feels like they're just showing her being taken advantage of. Like, she wants to be cool like Diana. Sorry, not Wonder Woman, but she wants to be like Diana Prince. But in doing so, kind of still seems like a dorky person. And I understand the idea was because the doohickey, the crux of the film is this thing that grants wishes, and because it takes time to take something from you when it's a monkey's paw. When you make your wish, it takes something from you. There's always you don't get anything for free. And I got that. And I got that her humanity was what was being stripped away from her. So, from who we had at the beginning of the film, when we had her the first time and she first meets Max, she wishes on the stone. She wants to be cool. She wants to be powerful. She wants to be attractive. And then when she gets that, it almost feels like, it feels wasted. It feels wasted. I was excited to see this scene. I was excited to see Barbara wish for this,
Strong, sexy, cool, special.
Now, Kristen Wiig is a solid actress. Comedically, dramatically, she has the timing. And watching a film where of course, again, she's not the star, so I understood she was going to play second fiddle. But seeing her play third fiddle bothered me. I didn't want Pedro Pascal's amazing. He's great. But I didn't want Pedro Pascal to essentially be the other star of this film. And that's what really bothered me about that part. Let's talk power sets. Let's talk real quick. about what the whole movie's about. I mean, I'm not going to spoil the whole movie for you guys, but hopefully if you're actually, you know what, I will spoil it because if you're watching this, you've seen the film. This review isn't for anyone who hasn't seen the film. But at this point, if you haven't figured out that I've just spoiled major parts of it, I don't know what to say to you. But essentially the story is that Wonder Woman is now in the 80s. She's alone. She's lived a solitary life. Steve is dead. She works at this museum. She doesn't like to interact with people. And Pedro Pascal is essentially this guy who's been looking for a way out of a bad situation because he played himself. He conned and maneuvered himself into bad situations and has no way of buying himself out of the debt that he's in. And Barbara Minerva is a woman who works at the office that no one notices. Natasha Rothwell plays the, I guess, administrator at the museum and doesn't even remember Barbara, who she hired a week ago. And stuff like that was kind of like, okay, we get it. Barbara is really underseen, underappreciated, undervalued, not even recognized by people that she's spoken with, like stuff like that. I mean, the trope of the geeky villain who gets stepped on, we saw it with Jamie Foxx in Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. We've seen it with who else has done it? I mean, there's a whole bunch of characters. That's always the idea, that these people felt betrayed by society. They're kind of dorky people who no one really appreciated or cared for. So now that they have power, they are abusive. Like I say on the podcast all the time, pendulum swings. If I was abused the whole time and now I have the power to be strong, you'd like to think that I'd use that strength to help others. But sometimes what happens is you've been stepped on for so long that having that power corrupts you. The joke is power corrupts. Corruption is evil. That's what it does. And that's what happens to Barbara. But the fact that she got pushed back, with Pedro's character, he was trying to figure a way out of this bad situation. And for some reason decided to approach it by looking for a mystical means to an end. And, fine. Again, suspension of disbelief. I'm okay with that. We're in the DC universe, so anything can happen. I'm cool with that. But anything can happen within reason. So it kind of bothered me a bit that at the end of the film, the whole big crux of this movie, we've played all these crazy scenes. We've seen some cool fights. We've seen some good arguments. I would, positive. The White House fight was really good. That they have where Steve and after Cairo, by the way, which I hate the Cairo scene. It felt like a huge waste of time. The movie is 2 hours and 30 minutes. If you cut out the whole Cairo part, you still have the same movie. And that to me was such a weird thing that they decided to put this whole part. Everything that leads up to the Cairo part bothers me. Everything that happens in the Cairo part bothers me. And then they come back from Cairo and they don't even explain how they got back. They don't explain where the invisible jet is. All of that stuff is just thrown out the window. And that genuinely felt like they didn't know what to do. They had the story and they wrote it and they were just like, oh, we want to show them traveling. So they just threw in some stuff to figure out how to show them traveling. They wanted to show Steve flying a jet for some odd reason. They threw in all that stuff. They give it to us and then they take it away. And we're supposed to feel like that was important. It's not. It's really not important. It doesn't play a major role in the film. You could have easily had Max Lord come back and just had the power he had, and you could have shown on a little TV screen that the big wall came up and that was it. The fact that Wonder Woman and Steve follow Max all the way to Cairo to just come back and to show Max's power now that he has the power, because Max absorbs the monkey's paw, the stone, into himself. That was a waste. You wasted 30 minutes. I actually would love to see a version of the movie where you edit that out to see what it looks like. Because I truly believe if you cut that huge section out, you get rid of some of the sillier things. You keep the scene where Cheetah, Barbara, Minerva, Wonder Woman, and Diana Prince and Steve all go to meet this guy for information on how the stone worked in the past. That scene was actually interesting. It showed that it explained which god was involved, although, I mean, you could have named anyone. It didn't really matter because at that point, Wonder Woman has the connections to the gods, but what do we care, right? We already know that stuff. It's already established in lore. So you didn't really have to go back and revisit it, but fine. If that's how you want to throw that in, you throw that in. And then the reason that scene was cool for me was because it showed the breaking point for Barbara. Again, that was, for me, Barbara's an important character. So seeing those major moments in Barbara's development as a character were interesting to me. Seeing Steve wasn't. To be honest, you could have thrown in any sidekick there. The fact that Steve was the sidekick because he's the love of her life was cool. And I guess it works through, and she does get to say goodbye, and she finally, closes that chapter of her life. Fine, we get it. But again, I Wonder Woman, Barbara, that's what I wanted. That's what I was hoping for. As much as they promoted the film, I really thought that's what I was getting. And to see that it was more of this kind of Pedro story. Anyways, that the whole film culminates with, and I'll just show you guys the little scene that I was talking about. This scene right here, where Barbara is really,
If we destroy it, if we destroy him, all the wishes go back.
What are you talking about? No, I'm not going to be a part of that.
right.
No.
Or if everyone renounces their wish.
No, there has to be a better way. No.
She's right. We don't know enough. We just don't know enough. But
So that scene is important to me and interesting to me because Barbara doesn't want to give up her wish, because her wish essentially has made her who she is now. Even if that person isn't a good person, she likes who she is now. She's more confident. She's more comfortable. She's more respected with who she is now than what she was before. So I understand her not wanting to give up her wish. Wonder Woman, this was kind of an interesting scene because Wonder Woman is shown as being selfish. She's not actually being a hero in this scene. In this scene, she's pretending to think we don't have enough information. Steve has literally laid out what happens at the end of the film. Everyone has to renounce their wishes. Things can go back to normal and we can stop this. What other information? They literally do not gather more information from this point to the end of the film, where Wonder Woman ends up getting everyone to renounce their wishes. So this is, for me, this right here, this scene had less to do with Diana and Steve and had a lot more to do with Barbara as Cheetah. Yeah. And I think that for me was what makes the film interesting. Barbara as a character made the film interesting. A lot of times people say the villains make movies, and I think that if the film had tried to focus on Barbara more, we would have had a more interesting film. Because I really do like it. I really do like Barbara, not the film. I like it as in who Barbara is and how Barbara develops, and Kristen Wiig and the job that she does. Wonder Woman, on the other hand, I don't personally care. I didn't really love Wonder Woman in this film, and the final act of the film again ends with a very Martha-esque moment of, we get the scene where Wonder Woman, who has already sacrificed her love, is now telling Max Lord, everyone's renouncing their wishes. Think about your... Actually, she doesn't say think about your son, but Max starts to hear his son, and his son saying, "Dad," is what ends it. Very much like Martha. Why'd you say that name? It's just like these villains fall for such basic things, and I found that boring. Final thoughts, people, because this has been a lot longer than I expected, but I felt like I really needed to talk about it. My final thoughts. The final act was not good. Again, this is the second time that we've had a Wonder Woman film. They announced that there's going to be a third with Patty Jenkins. It's to be expected. Here's hoping they stick the landing, because I like the first movie more than I like this one. And I didn't like the first one all that much. I thought it was fun, but the final act was a waste. This one, the extra 30 minutes and the whole second half of the film was a mess. And I feel like it just didn't do the characters justice. And for this third one, we'll see what happens. Out of 10, probably a 5. Probably a 5. That's it, guys. That's all I got to say. Thanks for tuning in. Salute.